Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which we find out how we're going to cure the ills of society with good feelings. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday. Welcoming Wednesday. Sure, why not? I hope you're all doing well, all things considered. I haven't done one of these in a couple of days, but here we are. This one caught my eye yesterday. I had a different one prepared, all ready to go, or ready to set up. And then TEDx, being the cornucopia of conscious thought that it is, threw something my way that I just couldn't ignore. And so here we are. But we'll get to that in a moment. Who is joining me on this journey into societal cures with me? Why, that would be Jaeger Pony, hello. Matt Barnes, hello. Slapper360, hello. Dr. Keeve, hello. Black Belt for Christ, hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Lissa Leo, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Tall Person, hello. Lucotorix, hello. Lucotorix, hello. Somnamnul Nation, hello. Drew W, hello. Keenan, hello. I didn't already say hello to Keenan. I don't think I did. Lady Gopher, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Tall Person, thank you so much. Happy National Butter Crunch Day. Butter Crunch? Butter Crunch. Do I know what Butter Crunch is? I think of Peanut Brittle or Butterfinger. Butter Crunch. Anyway, Non-Vitae Rex, hello. Blitz Zero, hello. Eric Grunstatter, hello. Megan Ring, hello. Tyler F, hello. The Useless Rebel, hello. Lady Gopher, thank you so much for the Dogcat Fox. We are number one. We are number one. Lancelot 652, hello. Fernanda, hello. Robert Pincus, hello. That One Servant of Satania, hello. And I think that's everybody. Okay, first note. In the rush of setting up the stream and also work stuff distracting me, I forgot to put up a poll for the bingo card today. So I have arbitrarily selected bingo card B. B as in Biden. No particular reason I thought of that today. I'm not going to dwell on any of that. That'll be for tonight. We'll talk about that tonight on Lords of the Night. So yes, bingo card B, have that ready, but... Oh, and Mr. No, hello. Mike Savage, blarg. What is today's topic? Today's topic is, what if 911 dispatched mental health responders? What if 911 dispatched mental health responders? Now, as always, I haven't watched this yet. Just as a note, it's also a relatively short TEDx at just under 10 minutes. But this notion is something that has come up repeatedly since the summertime, when the defund the police and or abolish the police rhetoric was being, spewed out very frequently. But it's not a new idea. There's a video I did a couple of years ago now called Lessons in Lawlessness, I think it's called. And it was a Black Lives Matter leader talking about their imagination of what would replace police if we remove them from society. And part of that plan was to have mental health workers, social workers in place of police. Now, I don't know what our speaker is going to say, but I have a couple of sort of general, predictions, because I've heard these arguments before. And so you might be asking, just as an aside, if I've heard these arguments before, why am I bothering to look at this video? Well, as I've explained in the past, even if I see something that sounds familiar, at least on its face, or looks familiar by its title, I'm still curious to know, what is the argument? I'm still curious to understand, what is the plan? Does it make sense? Does this person versus the people I've heard from previously have an idea that either changes my mind on the circumstance or expands my knowledge of the other side of the argument? Whatever. That's why I'm looking at it. That being said, I have yet to be convinced in any particular way what abolishing the police or defunding the police would do, and especially, what would you replace them with? Now, this part of the argument is the only replace them with argument I've heard so far that even approaches maybe something that could work. But here's the issue. I have a feeling, I'm just guessing, at some point in this talk, our speaker is going to say something to the effect of, like 90%, and I'm just throwing out numbers, but some majority percentage of calls that police respond to do not turn out to be emergency situations, right? Therefore, we should supplement these with that. And here's my preemptive response to that. And if I end up repeating myself as we go, so be it. You don't know a situation necessarily is an emergency until you get there. Someone calling and saying they heard a weird noise out in the alley behind their house. Could be a cat, could be a burglar. Rolling the dice on what sounds innocuous but could turn out to be something serious. If you send somebody out there who's not prepared for something serious, well, you've just wasted time and perhaps risked people's safety. That's my initial notion about what might be presented here. But all that being said, get your bingo cards ready. We're on bingo card B. And I'll start off with a couple of seconds for sound test. Again, this one comes in relatively short, so this will be a short episode. Unless she has a lot to say in a short amount of time, we'll see. A couple more hellos. Ethan Robbins, hello. Jake Tungseth, hello. Jose Chacon, hello. You're Ridiculous Lunatic, hello. Texas Attorney General Secret Agent, hello. Dina B, hello. Quinn the Cultist, hello. Ebony Williams, hello. The Eternal 2, hello. Aspianti, hello. Biotinky, hello. And if I missed anybody, I do apologize. Nathaniel Taylor, hello. All right, here we go, guys.
Call me weird, but...
Okay, you're weird. That was quick. Okay. You guys hear that? Okay. Get myself all situated here. Keyboard centered. Sounds good, says Zeke Weiss. You ridiculous lunatic doctor. No. Sounds fine and dandy. Okay, so I'll back up because I did just about cut her off. Okay, so call me weird.
Call me weird, but I love a good ride along. Like, love them.
Okay, a ride along with police. It took me a second. I was like, you love a good ride along. Okay.
I've been on ride-alongs across the world, in Amsterdam, in Canada, in Boston, and even right here in Denver.
Okay. This talk is, I guess it was Mile High or something. Yes. Okay. So we have a Denver. Okay. Ride-alongs.
And what I've learned is that people call the cops for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Anything from a lost cat to a neighbor they just want to know more about, to maybe a loved one or a stranger having a mental health crisis.
This is edging towards what I suspected.
But really, at the heart of it, people call 911 because they just don't know what else to do.
Conceivably, it depends on the call, depends on the circumstances. Sure.
What I've learned, though, is that sometimes when you call 911, it can make a bad situation even worse.
Sometimes, all right. How does the person calling 911 know that their situation is going to get worse by calling 911?
Maybe a loved one is arrested or they're placed on a 72-hour hold. There are fines and fees and criminal charges. And sometimes calling 911 can be the beginning of the end of someone's life.
Again, I will ask, how does the person in the moment, feeling as though there is an emergency taking place, knows that calling 911 is going to make things worse? Okay. So, all right. You're setting up your problem. What is your alternative solution?
Now, you might think I'm here to talk about abolishing the police.
I suspected something similar too, yes. Or if not abolish outright, because that is kind of ridiculous, drastically reducing their presence in society.
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Actually here to talk about a different solution. A solution that takes care of a person, keeps our communities safe, and helps the police to focus on what they do best, enforcing the laws.
Takes care of the person. How about the person under threat who calls 911? Is that a person that you should be taking care of?
For me, it all started with a visit to Eugene, Oregon.
Okay.
You see, I had just passed a ballot measure here in Denver called Caring for Denver to provide more mental health and substance use services for people in crisis right here in Denver.
Okay. Well, mental health and crisis abuse services and things like that, or substance abuse services, that's usually a very, afterwards thing. After a problem's been assessed or someone decides to go off and get that kind of help or needs it. Okay.
When a friend tipped me off to a program in Eugene.
Okay.
Normally, when you call 911, you get a firefighter, a police officer, or a paramedic.
Wait a second. I did a video on this, didn't I? Is she going to be talking about cahoots? Now, you may think I'm talking nonsense here, but there is a program, I believe, in Oregon, and I forget exactly what the acronym stands for, but it spells out cahoots. And it had something to do with mental health workers replacing police. Okay, let me back up a little bit.
When you call 911, you get a firefighter, a police officer, or a paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
But in Eugene, there's a fourth option, a mental health professional and an EMT who ride along in a van and respond to mental health calls.
How does one know that a mental health call, I mean, is it up to the person on the other end of the line making the call to assess whether or not this person is in a mental health crisis that is or is not dangerous? Okay.
The program is called Cahoots.
I was right. Hey, I remember things. I learn things as I go along. Are you going to tell us what it means again? Because I forget.
Studies show that nearly 50% of victims of police brutality have a disability, predominantly a mental health disability.
Just because they have a mental health disability, what were they doing at the time? Can police show up to a situation with someone holding a knife to someone's throat and care whether or not the person with the knife has a mental health disability at that point? Their concern is for the person whose life is at risk and the lives of others. I mean, that doesn't tell me anything. And assessing someone's disability is usually something that happens after the fact, after you've secured the situation and made sure people are safe. What are police supposed to do in the moment? Now, I could imagine a scenario where, let's say you have a mother, right? And they know their child. They know their child is just having a bit of a breakdown, but they're not dangerous, right? I mean, we've seen this before where police show up, somebody's going through something and they don't have any foreknowledge of what's going on, right? The police don't have any prior knowledge of this person's condition. They just see what's going on in the moment. And mistakes have been made in the past. Not in every case, but in some. Okay. So if you have a mother who knows their kid and their kid's going through some kind of thing and they can't handle it, and they have a emergency call line they can call and say, somebody needs to get out here to try to talk them down because I can't. I guess you could roll the dice if you're the mother in that case. But you just end up putting at least two people's lives in danger, or safety in danger, the healthcare worker and the EMT, if the person's situation is more problematic than the mother assumes, or her bias. Okay, I hope she has some active examples because I'm already, once again, a little bit iffy.
We have a huge problem with mental health in this country.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is, police simply don't have the tools to respond to a mental health crisis.
Give me an active example. Give me an example where someone is in a crisis of a mental health crisis, the police respond to, and it goes sideways. Because you're right, police are there to enforce the law. Police are there to secure people's lives and safety. You're right. Okay. But assessing someone having been possessing a mental health problem after a police killing doesn't tell me what was going on during the encounter. I mean, I can believe that someone holding 2 knives and stalking towards the police officers after them telling them over and over and over again to stop, put the knives down, stop, put the knives down. I can believe that person has a mental health problem. That doesn't change the fact that they were an active threat to people's lives and safety. So if the police ended up shooting such a person, and I'm quoting or citing an actual video I saw relatively recently, this last summer or something, where someone did that. Police arrived on the scene. There was a guy marching towards them with 2 knives, one in each hand. And they told him they were backing away and telling him, put the knives down, put the knives down. We're going to shoot you, put the knives down, over and over and over again. And the guy kept coming. Was he trying to do suicide by cop? Was he in some other kind of mental crisis? I don't know. Either way, it's irrelevant in the moment because he's threatening people's lives and safety. And he ended up being shot. I forget if he ended up dying, but he ended up being shot. You can't talk someone away from that who isn't capable of taking deadly force if necessary. I mean, you make it sound like someone has a mental health disability, therefore the police just shot them. That's not how it works. Thank you, Redneck Ram. I'm here, late to the party again. It is now your job to make sure I know what time it always is, so I know when you go live, Scribe. Always. Well, thank you, Redneck, but if you'll take note, should you follow me on Twitter, I usually announce when I'm going to do things. I can't be your Casio watch on your wrist, though. I mean, it'd be nice if I could. That'd be some Scarlet Witch reality bending kind of magic right there. But either way, I do my best. All right.
And we've seen that when we don't adequately fund mental health and substance use services and use our jails and our prisons as de facto mental health clinics, we actually end up in much worse situations.
Okay. Check Your Logic brings up a good point. Leaves out vital context. Yeah, the 50% killings of people with mental health. Yeah, assessing after the fact and not telling us what the circumstances were that led to it and so on, and assuming that somehow that's the reason the people were shot because they had a mental health problem. No, that's not how that works. Circling free space, circling leaves out vital context. Using our prisons as de facto mental health thing. The mental health thing is secondary. Okay, we put people in jail because they've committed crimes. They've been convicted of crimes. You know, violent or otherwise, they've been convicted of crimes. Are there many people in jail who have mental health problems? Sure, I believe it. But if they are violent offenders, if there's not some other circumstance that's mitigating whatever their situation is, confinement is the only place to put them. If they qualify for mental health treatment, if their crimes or whatever are such that aren't going to put them in danger of someone else, then going off to a mental health facility or something would make some sense. Okay, but painting this large brush saying that, oh, because there are people with mental health problems in jail, we're at fault? No, that's not how that works.
And people's mental health is no better for it.
Well, okay, so what is the solution then? If you have a violent offender who also happens to be schizophrenic, okay, I mean, we have, asylums for the criminally insane, I suppose. But let's just say that they don't qualify for that or whatever else. What would you do? What would sending a mental health worker and an EMT to a crisis situation with someone with violent tendencies, what would that do? How would that avoid them having to go to jail for hurting somebody? Because presumably they're in jail because they've hurt someone in some way, shape, or form, not just because they have mental health issues. You're leaving out an important part of the puzzle here. It doesn't just go A to C. There's that B step right in the middle. So
I went along to Eugene to learn more. I went through a training and yay, finally, another ride along. I got in the van and went with the Cahoots team. About 20 minutes into our call, we were called to respond to a man in a mental health crisis.
Okay, you were called to respond to a man in a mental health crisis. All right, what are the details thereof?
Immediately, I was shocked at how nice the neighborhood was.
You were shocked at how nice the neighborhood was. You think mental health issues only apply to poor people or something? What?
Middle income neighborhood, kids out playing. There was even a young boy on a tricycle in the driveway.
Okay.
It was just a normal day.
Yeah.
We met up with a woman who was the wife, and we asked her what was going on.
Yeah.
She informed us that her husband was locked in the bathroom, and he was talking about ending his life.
Okay. And what, he wasn't supposed to be in that way because he was living in a middle class neighborhood or something? Like, I don't understand the connection between her citing, like, I was surprised, like, mental health doesn't know the boundaries of class. You needed to go to Oregon to have that revelation?
He had box cutters.
Oh.
We went inside to talk to him, and he explained to us through a closed door
Yes.
that he simply couldn't do it anymore. He was erratic. He said he wasn't going to put his family through these burdens anymore.
Well, it's a good thing that you were there because, you know, a police officer would have walked up to that bathroom door and just started firing through it. Right?
And he just wanted to end.
Yeah.
We talked to him through that closed door for nearly an hour.
Something that police officers have never, ever done before. Talking someone down off a ledge, trying to talk somebody out of a bad situation. No. If police had been there, they would have just not asked any questions. As soon as they heard box cutter, they would have kicked in the door and blown him away. God, thank goodness you were there. Thank you, Puddock. This has nothing to do with the video. This is just to commemorate the anniversary of Lawton. 4 more years. 4 more years. That's correct. Today is the 4th anniversary of the very first time that Monkey and I ever streamed together in a very brief practice stream where I was showing him how to live stream, which seems kind of bizarre now that I think about it. But yes, on Lords of the Night tonight, we will be doing, on Monkey's channel, by the way, which is appropriate, all things considered, we'll be doing a anniversary show. I'm not quite sure what that will comprise, or be comprised of, I should say, but you'll have to tune in to find out. Anyway, yeah, tell us how what you were doing is so far out of the bounds of what police were doing, because you're going to have to compare and contrast the outcome you had versus the outcome you assume would have occurred had the police shown up.
And in the end, he just wouldn't come out. So we left.
You left. You left a suicidal man holding box cutters. Why did you give up? Okay.
About 30 minutes after leaving, we were called to come back on scene.
Why did you leave?
You see, the police had been called.
Uh-huh.
He had box cutters, a
Yeah.
weapon,
Yeah.
but they knew we had been there first.
Okay.
So but the police, they waited for us.
Why would they do that? Why didn't they kick in the door and shoot him? He had a mental health disorder and weapons. I mean, the whole point of your pitch here is that police are inherently murderous, right?
We got there, and the police were able to convince the man to turn over his box cutters.
What? I'm circling contradicts own point or argument. I don't know what she's going to say next, but her entire opening is just destroyed by her own example. Wow. Okay. I mean, I appreciate the candor, I suppose. I'm just wondering what she's going to do with this now.
He got dressed.
Yeah.
He came out of the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
something magical happened.
What?
You see, the police started to retreat down the stairs.
Yeah.
The cahoots team, they stepped up.
That's a miracle? Not knowing what... Okay.
They got the man to sit on the couch and talk to them.
Was he still holding the box cutters?
And then they knelt down to his eye level because he wasn't a threat and neither were they. We sat there and we talked for about 3 hours.
3 hours. Okay.
Now, I was back a little bit and I could see on a desk that they had in the hallway piles and piles of papers.
Yeah.
Unpaid medical bills. I knew what he was going through.
Okay.
The Cahoots team talked to him about his financial burdens. They talked to him about resources. And they eventually made a plan to get him to help the next day.
Which no police officer would ever have done, obviously. And no such thing has ever occurred with police officers talking people down from such situations, offering alternatives or solutions or anything. No, I just... Sorry, what was the point of this example again?
He even ate a sandwich.
Oh.
And they took his vitals the entire time.
Okay.
When we left, he was a different person. And so was I.
If you say so, I'm going to be circling mind reading assumes motives because she doesn't know what kind of person he was and she doesn't know what happened the next day or anything else with him. That's assuming facts, not in evidence. I'm glad the guy was talked down from killing himself. Certainly. But obviously, hopefully, it's a long-term solution. But
sadly, the situation is all too familiar for me.
What?
You see, my sister has been in and out of the criminal justice system for about 30 years. You know, we thought she was just an addict. Later, we found out that she had untreated trauma from a sexual assault.
So what was she convicted of? How does being an addict or being the victim of sexual assault justify... Well, I don't know. What has she been in prison for? What does that have to do with anything?
We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to help her. So when I flew back to Denver, I thought about my sister. I thought about this man, and I knew we could do better.
Wait. Your sister knowingly, you mean knowingly by the family, had an addiction problem for years. And then you found out, obviously prior to your going off to Oregon, that she had been the victim of sexual assault. At no point in any of her timeline, you either encouraged her or got her to therapy or detox or anything? Nothing at all? I'm backing up a little bit because I cut her off, but what?
I thought about my sister. I thought about this man. And I knew we could do better in Denver. You see, what intrigued me so much about Eugene is that the police and the...
Okay, well, sorry, I forgot to circle. Childhood or family anecdote. And also, weightless example. That sister story said nothing, did nothing. It said nothing about anything dealing with the police or having police be replaced by mental health workers. Meant nothing. If she comes back around to it and circles back and something like happens, I don't know. But how does calling 911 and having mental health workers respond instead of police have anything to do with the history of your sister's crimes? Thank you, Redneck Ram, again. Definitely need you to be the Casio. My problem is I'm at work and lose track of time and forget to start the stream. Well, like I say to everybody who misses or comes in late, so long as YouTube allows me to leave them up, they'll be here for you when you're free. Occasionally, TEDx likes to claim them or strike them or something, but usually I can argue them back and say, hey, there's a little thing called fair use. So anyway, your sister has nothing to do with anything. I mean, sure, maybe she inspired you or was a template for what your concerns were, but you're arguing to replace police with an extra option of mental health workers. That has nothing to do with your sister, unless you tell me something else. Oh, sorry.
What intrigued me so much about Eugene is that the police and the mental health crisis team, they work together.
Well, they would have to, wouldn't they? I mean, they would have to be licensed. They'd have to be paid by the city. They'd have to be part of the 911 network. I mean, I assume that there is a mental health / EMT department ready to answer such calls, just like the police, just like fire, just like paramedics. Why wouldn't they work with the police? They're like, would they be in opposition with each other? I mean, and also, if your argument is that police are just mental health murdering bastards, shouldn't they be resistant to working with mental health people as an option? Which is it?
In cahoots. An elite team of specialists trained to respond to people having a mental health or substance use crisis.
Nothing of what you described is anything I haven't heard police officers doing themselves. Talking somebody down from the ledge, literally or figuratively. Trying to reach a peaceful conclusion, especially if the circumstances are you have someone who's not actively threatening anybody else's safety. They're just threatening their own. They're obviously in crisis. You seeing piles of bills on the table is not something that police would not have noticed themselves. Okay.
See, it was the police that convinced the man to surrender the box cutters.
Yeah, and they could not have done that before you guys showed up or without you guys showing up?
But it was the cahoots team that stepped up, connected the man to resources, and listened.
Those things are not outside the realm of capability for police officers. I have personally witnessed a police officer talk a man down from jumping off of a bridge before. That guy stood out there for about 90 minutes, but he would have gone for 7 hours if it meant it would have talked that guy down and saved his life. I have no doubt. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm going to disparage the people who are professionals who spend their lives trying to help people as somehow irrelevant or something. At the same time, though, you've not described anything in your chief example that could not or would not have been done by police. I don't believe for a second that in the scenario you described, the Denver police, in the absence of having a cahoots team, would have just kicked the guy's door in and shot him to death because he had box cutters and was thinking of killing himself. I have a very hard time believing that. And you're not telling me that that's what would have happened. You're not giving me the dire alternative of what you believe would have occurred if that situation had happened in Denver versus Eugene. Why aren't you telling me that? Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk, for the happy, lovely Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox. Such a nice person. Well, I mean, nice genetic experiment, right? Wowie, wow, wow. I mean, I don't mean to diminish you, but I mean, you're not like a person. Stop looking at me like that. Okay.
You see, I have been fighting for criminal justice reform my entire career.
And how? I'm going to start repeating myself more than I already am.
And sometimes it can seem so daunting. There are 7,000 prisons and jails across the United States, 2.3 million inmates.
What does that have to do with 911 responders? Are you saying that if mental health professionals showed up instead of police, that we'd have less people in jail? I mean, police are showing up because there is a crime in progress or a potential crime about to occur. Hopefully, the crime can be avoided in some way, shape, or form, or the arrival of the police can prevent anything from really serious taking place. But what are you proposing? Are you saying that adding this extra option is going to reduce the number of people in jail?
For millions of Americans, judges, attorneys, correctional officers, cops, mass incarceration is a livelihood.
Okay, so all the judges, all the police, all the correctional officers, all the prosecutors, they are just heartless mercenaries. They see human beings as nothing more than a paycheck. They see human beings as nothing more than individual bounties to keep their jobs in place. This is the accusation you're making. Okay.
To fix the criminal justice system, we must look critically at every piece of the puzzle, find out what's working, and fix what's not.
Okay, so tell me what's not working. Tell me what isn't working. Because so far, you have not described a scenario to me where outcome A would have been police showing up and outcome B is mental health workers showing up. You haven't shown that to me. You haven't proven that to me. And your 50% statistic doesn't mean anything without context, because you can't just clump together individual instances of police contact. Every situation is different. Every situation, even described in general terms, has different circumstances surrounding it. And I would hope you would know that, given the fact that you've gone on so many ride-alongs. But apparently not.
If there is one thing that's clearly not working, it's the one-size-fits-all approach.
The one-size-fits-all approach. Do tell.
Outside of Eugene, Oregon, that man would have been placed on a 72-hour hold. He could have been incarcerated. He might even have died.
Could have. Might have. That's your best shot. Okay.
He would have been under more financial stress and burden, and his mental health would have been no better.
You don't know that. You can't know that. But that's your chief example. What might have happened, what could have been somewhere else. Okay.
2 million people are booked into jails and prisons every year.
For absolutely no reason, I'm sure.
And the National Alliance for Mental Health, they've reported that 83% of these folks don't have access to mental health care.
Okay. Maybe that's something that can be looked at. What has that got to do with the crimes they've committed?
A well-functioning criminal justice system uses the right tool at the right time.
You're not convincing me. Not with your example and not with your broad strokes. You're really not. If you've been on ride-alongs, you know the random chaos that can occur, call to call, situation to situation. You're right. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. But there's also no panacea for crime.
Why are we asking our police and our prisons to fix our mental health crisis?
What? Crime is a mental health crisis. So, what are you saying? Why are we asking the police and prisons to solve our mental health crisis? We're not. We're asking the police to enforce the law. But of course, police wear many, many hats depending on the circumstances. They get trained in all sorts of things because they don't know what they're going to encounter out there minute to minute, day to day. And the prisons, I guess it depends on the prison, but if they have some kind of mental health facility there or some mental health professionals there, That's the best we can do. What are you proposing in alternative here? Because you're saying, oh, here's the problem. Okay, but you're only talking about people arriving at the point of the emergency. Now, you brought up probably the most sort of dangerous yet contained emergency you can imagine. A suicidal person locked in a bathroom by themselves, a barrier between them and other people, threatening to take their own life. Okay, that's a very specific circumstance. And thankfully, the guy was able to be talked down. Great. He was only a threat to himself. While not good, at least the threat is contained for the moment to one person. Great. What if that guy had been in the house holding the box cutters, just ranting and raving and threatening his wife? Okay, same mental health problem, wants to die by cop. But what happens then? What are you proposing as an alternative? You're saying, I'm not here to talk about abolishing police. Okay, well, but you're talking about the police are murderers and ineffective. I'm not here to talk about abolishing prisons. Oh, but prisons, they can't handle mental health issues and they're just doing terrible things. So what is your alternative? So far, you've given us a fourth option for 911 calls, mental health and EMT. Okay, maybe it would be very dependent on the circumstances of the call, I suppose. It would also be very dependent on the circumstances of the person making the call to be able to have some idea of how serious the situation is to ask for mental health versus asking for police. But all right, you're going to put that in the hands of the citizen. There you go. They use their best judgment. What does any of that have to do with your sister? What does any of that have to do with the prison system? What does any of that have to do with the police and mental health? Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. She's the one pushing a one-size-fits-all solution. Isn't she, though? There's no one-size-fits-all solution. But if we add cahoots, it'll cure everything, right?
That's not what they do. Eugene uses a standard system of triage.
A standard system? I thought there wasn't a one-size-fits-all solution.
What's happening right now? And what does a person need right now?
That's what cops do when they show up at the scene. They have to assess the situation. Somebody calls and says, I hear some noise out in the alley of my house, and I've heard that other houses in the neighborhood have been burgled recently. Well, the cop shows up, and they have to assess what's going on right now, because that's all the information that they have. And they look in the alley. Is it a cat? Is it someone prowling around? Are they hiding behind a dumpster? Are they armed? What do you think police do on a daily basis? You said you went on ride-alongs all over the world. When they get a call, oftentimes it is very limited information from a single person, a single source, something suspicious or something serious. Or it's someone who's mistaken something serious for something not serious, or vice versa. What are you talking about?
But then they have the tools to back it up. A team of trained professionals who have the time, resources, and energy to get the person to the services they need.
What if you don't know about that until after the situation is secured? Assessing what a person needs as far as mental health, unless you're talking about that very specific situation where the person is saying, hi, I'm locked in a bathroom and I'm going through a mental crisis and I'm thinking about ending my own life. That's a very specific circumstance. Give me another example. Give me another situation of a mental health crisis that isn't so clear-cut based on a single phone call to 911. You know, if mom, the same scenario I talked about before, if mom calls and says, my son is freaking out, he's not violent, he's not going to hurt anybody, I just need somebody here to talk to him. Okay, well, what if mom is biased? What if mom isn't a mental health professional? What if mom doesn't know the extent of her son's capabilities in that situation? What if your EMT and your mental health professional show up and the son pulls out a gun? What happens then? Well, now we've gone from having one person in danger, 2 if you count the son, to now 4 people in danger who aren't prepared, who aren't trained, who aren't armed. What do you do then? Who takes responsibility for the lives of people being sent to or being called to scenes where they have no pre-knowledge of what's going on? They have no sense of how serious the situation is or not. What happens then? You need to give me that scenario. You need to give me the worst case scenario and how you mitigate that risk. I'm not saying you get rid of all risk. Don't get me wrong. There's no perfect solution. Okay, police officers put their lives on the line every day, and no matter how much training they have, things can go sideways real quick. But you need to tell me, how do you mitigate the situation where the call comes in sounding benign, but then things go sideways? What happens then?
Denver launched our co-response model in 2016. We launched STAR Baby Cahoots in June. Today, we have 22 co-responders, mental health professionals, who ride along with law enforcement officers.
Ride along with law enforcement officers. They don't show up as alternative. They're there to supplement police activity. That's not what you were talking about before. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. A boy's best friend is his mother. Yes. Norman! Thank you, Redneck Ram, again. I don't know. This whole talk just reeks of let's create more bureaucracy at taxpayer expense to employ more people like me. Okay, she's completely changed the landscape of the argument now. Now she's talking about having a committed mental health individual along, basically partnering with a police officer as they go about their daily duties. Okay, now that is an idea that doesn't immediately make me go, huh? So if a police officer is still there as a fallback, depending on the circumstances, okay. Well, that sounds more reasonable.
We have 11 caseworkers.
11? Wait, hold on. Let me get back to the numbers of what she's talking about. Sorry, let me back up a little bit.
16. We launched STAR Baby Cahoots in June. Today, we have 22 co-responders, mental health professionals, who ride along with law enforcement officers.
22 co-responders ride-alongs. Okay, so 22 in Denver. I don't know how large the city Denver is, but okay, 22 interspersed amongst the police. Okay.
We have 11 caseworkers.
11 caseworkers. So those would be the people that would operate after the situation's been secured and you can assess the person and take them on as a social worker case kind of thing. Okay, so 22 and 11.
In addition, we dispatched the STAR team, a paramedic and a mental health professional in a mobile crisis unit who are trained to deal with someone in a mental health emergency.
I still want to know what qualifies as a mental health emergency. Like what separates that from what situations fall under mental health emergency versus this is a police action situation? You know, because you're distinguishing between responses. This situation being called in is a mental health emergency versus this situation being called in is person in danger, regardless of the potential suspect's mental state. How do you navigate your way through deciding which is which? And I understand she's not going to get into that in this talk. There's only 1:45 left, but that's just sort of my rhetorical question. Like, how is that decision made? When is it decided based on a 911 call and limited information, whether this is a emergency response team situation or a we need a police officer there because we don't know what's going to happen situation?
They stabilize them. They de-escalate the situation.
Wait, is that guy in the middle, is he armed? Is that a gun at his side? Or am I mistaken?
And they connect someone with the resources that they need. Ongoing care. So far, the results have been nothing short of miraculous.
I doubt miracles are in play, but okay, tell me. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. Hello, officer. I was just misgendered. Hurry. Support, not stigma. Okay.
Star has had 1,000 calls since June.
1,000 calls. Okay. Dr. Keefe says it's a radio. Okay. I don't know. I was just curious because I'm looking at something on his hip that's all dark and everything. Like, okay.
They have had to call the police for backup 0 times.
Really? 1,000 calls, never had to call for backup. So all of those 1,000 calls would have ended in someone being shot to death? Or what?
Additionally, the co-responder model has led to a less than 2% rate of tickets or citations.
Tickets or citations? Tickets or citations? I thought the concern was like people in bodily danger or in personal crisis of killing themselves or something. Tickets or citations? That's your best statistic? 2%? Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. I wonder how many support workers will be killed yearly. I hope 0. I don't know. Thank you, Juggernaut. Don't need to call for them if already there. Yeah, what?
And the best part, the cops love it.
What, pleasing the cops was your major concern? I thought they were, mental disability murdering bastards.
In fact, the thing I hear the most is, why don't we have Star in my precinct yet?
Okay, again, if you have dedicated people who are in cars with police as a supplement, as an alternative, depending on the circumstances, if you can call car 54 that has a mental health worker in there to respond to someone calling in about family member in a mental health crisis, so you have a professional there, but you also have the police officer there in case things go sideways. That sounds perfectly reasonable to me. I don't have a problem with that one. I mean, at least you're not putting all your eggs in one basket like you described with the Oregon situation. That sounds much more reasonable. So on its face, I don't have a problem with that concept, but that's not what you were pitching before. You're pitching like replacing, right? You said you wanted a 4th option: police, firefighter, paramedic. But now you're talking about a combination. That's different. That's not what you introduced this with.
Cops are even working alongside of co-responders.
Of what they had, they're they're in the car with them, going on their calls. They have to work with them. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? I have someone who's basically my partner now, and they have to work with them.
To deal with their own mental health traumas.
What? Wait, what? Okay. So the police officer is now the patient of their co-responder in the car. Is that wise?
They're talking through their issues with people that they actually trust.
What? And 2 police officers who've been partners forever don't do that? 2 people in the same profession, regardless of what it is, don't do that when it comes to stress or trauma or anything else? Okay, you're not selling me that as some kind of benefit. People do that as a matter of course because we're human beings. And if we're 2 people in the same profession facing the same troubles, unless you're a complete psychopath, empathy tends to win out, and you talk to someone about it. And if it becomes more than that, you talk to someone professionally about it. You're not impressing me with that one. Police are just stoic slabs of stone the rest of the time. Oh, but you put a mental health professional on the second seat. Now suddenly they'll open up about their problems? What?
And we found this not only makes law enforcement officers safer, but it keeps the profession safer as a whole.
Why? How?
We call the foundation Caring for Denver because caring is at the heart of it.
Yes.
We care about the people, we listen to their concerns, and we connect folks with the resources that they need.
And prior to this, the police officers in Denver were doing none of this at all. I get that having a more focused program on it can result in different things, but you make it sound as though none of this could be possible or was ever done prior.
It's a kind approach to criminal justice, yes, but it's also a logical one.
So what I was supposed to think that criminal justice or law enforcement should be bereft of kindness? What are you talking about? Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. I'll catch this on the playback. Here's money for a pepper jack. Sounds like you might need one. I'll sum up in a moment. We're almost done with this.
Not every problem can be solved by the police, and not everyone should go to jail.
Uh-huh.
When we talk about criminal justice, what we're really talking about is people.
Oh, please.
People are at the heart of it. We deserve a better approach, one with empathy and humanity. So let's be smart about criminal justice.
Yeah, because police officers, as a rule, are neither empathetic or humane.
And use the right tool at the right time. Thank you.
Okay. This was a bit of a confusing one, as you might have noticed. She started out with argument A and then transitioned into solution F. And I'm just, what? Okay, well, let's go to the bingo card. I haven't reviewed this yet, per se, but yeah. Let me switch this over to this, and then we do that. Is that coming through clearly? It is. All right, so where are we? Let's go over it. Anecdote that probably never happened. Nothing about her talk struck me as inherently false. And given the fact that her chief example at various points contradicted her own opening thesis, I tend to believe that happened. The guy in the bathroom with the box cutters and everything. Now, was there some embellishment in there or something? I couldn't tell you. But I didn't disbelieve it on its face. So I'm not going to circle that one. Self-vilification or wretchedness. No, she never really talked about herself all that much. She talked about her family and her direct experiences, but didn't sort of put herself in the story so much. Systemic institutional. Yeah, criminal justice system, so on and so forth, the prison system and on. So circling that one. Word salad. I'm tempted to circle word salad just because of some of the things she was saying that just made me go, what? So in fact, I'm going to circle it. Yeah, word salad. What are you talking about? You know, making statements without backing them up or making declarations without any sort of evidence. Like what? Collectivize his own demographic. She never, like I said, she never brought up herself as an example of anything in particular. White supremacy. She never brought up race at all. No. A list. Well, she listed off the fourth option at the beginning, police, firefighter, paramedic, and now cahoots. So circling list. And if you guys have any proposals for squares to be circled, just give me a minute to go through the card and then we'll discuss. Privilege. She never said the word. And even though she talked about, I mean, the whole, I showed up to a middle-class suburb and I was surprised that we'd be showing up here for a mental health situation. That just sounds like, I don't know what that sounds like. I don't think it sounds like privilege per se. Maybe there's an abstract argument there for that one, but I'll leave that to you guys. Equity, no. I mean, She argued for different outcomes for people. Not everybody needs to go to jail, but that's not necessarily an equity, equality of outcome kind of thing. Plays victim. She never really made herself part of the story specifically. She quoted things that she was witness to or involved in, but she didn't use herself as an example. That's kind of where I'm stuck on that one. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. Well, you could say that the name of her organization, the Baby Cahoots or STAR, constitutes a new buzzword or buzz phrase. And I'm going to be loose enough with the rules here for that one because it's not a bingo card or bingo square, and she was promoting it more than once, and she was so proud of herself for having come up with it. Wage gap. She did talk about people's finances. She talked about sort of income inequality in that sense. Does it constitute a wage gap? I mean, it wasn't talking about like a disparity in class per se, just that these things can lead to financial hardship. I don't think that's quite on the nose enough for wage gaps. I'm going to leave that blank. Patriarchy, no. Feminism, no. Diversity and inclusion, no, surprisingly enough. Marginalization. You could argue that people with mental health disorders or issues are being unfairly victimized. That's kind of one of the messages that she put across. So I'm going to circle that one sort of on aggregate, not on specific. So there's that. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. She never did. She never brought up race. She never brought up gender per se. No, I mean, if somebody in the in chat, if you have an example, hold on to it for a second. Benevolent condescension. It wasn't so much benevolent condescension. She was, actively. It was more like benevolent vilification of the police, which doesn't fit for the square, obviously. But I'm just sort of thinking about there's a lot of condescension there towards the police. Is it benevolent? I mean, benevolent condescension usually applies to something to the effect of, the soft bigotry of low expectations, that kind of thing. It's like, oh, you can't help yourself. You're just this way kind of thing. I suppose you could say that she was kind of categorizing police and everybody in that way, but she wasn't being benevolent about it. She was being accusatory. The police, the prosecutors, the judges, the correctional officers, they're all doing this for the buck. People are being put in jail just for profit. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. I mean, I guess you could say that she was implying that police show up to such situations and they make assumptions without question and then kick the door in and start shooting. She's basically making an accusation that police don't have the capability of sort of having any nuance in their head about situations. So yeah, I'm going to circle that one. Okay, well, on a quick review, that is where I'm at. So if you guys have arguments for squares to be circled that aren't currently circled, put them in the chat now. Be sure to tag your comment with my name so I can see it amongst all the other stuff, but I'll take a look here in a second. Ebony Williams, is diversity and inclusion only pertaining to race and gender? No, not necessarily. You'd have to give me your argument. What are you getting at, Ebony? Tell me what you're thinking. Some emulation of scribe light. What about cops saying, why don't we have STAR in our department? As an anecdote that probably never happened, cops don't generally support interference from other groups. Yeah, it's such an offhanded comment. I don't know. There's not enough information there for me to say it never happened. I mean, all it would have to have happened is one person said that. One person saw a good outcome and asked for it. That's yeah. She would have needed to give us more information for me to judge whether or not it sounded reasonable. So, let's see. Ebony Williams. I meant the mental health workers working with police. Oh, that kind of diversity and inclusion. That's kind of a stretch of what the square means, you know. Yeah, that's. I don't think that fits. Let's see. Zeke Feiser, surprised the cops work together might be an argument, but doubt it. The benevolent condescension. I know there's a better phrase for it. Like I said, benevolent vilification or something. Her surprise. Yeah. You know what? I mean, I don't. Maybe I need to change that square to something like benevolent condescension / vilif or assumption of wrongdoing or something. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. I'm hesitant to circle it as it is because it doesn't refer to what I'm talking about. That's my only problem there. Wouldn't it be just straight condescension? Yeah, it would be. But like I say, benevolent condescension is where someone is doing a talk and they take a demographic and they impart upon them some inherent flaw that this person is there to immediately cure, right? Now you could say, oh, well, she was being benevolently condescending to mental health people with mental health problems. Yeah, but people with mental health problems actually have an inherent problem. They have mental health problems. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's an argument I'm missing, but some emulation. Okay, what about her bringing up class for no reason when talking about first mental health call being a nice neighborhood and being astounded? Oh, you know what? That's solid. That is solid. It had nothing to do with anything. And the fact that she would like mark that as some kind of surprising thing. If she's been on ride-alongs forever, she has to have known and seen that crime, disturbance, mental health is not relegated to one class or another. So yeah, that is a little odd. So, okay. You convinced me. Jose says, privilege, when she said that she was surprised going to middle class. Okay, yeah, that was a good point. I think it makes more sense for make something about race, sex, etc. In this case, class for no reason. So we got that one. I don't think that constitutes privilege per se. Let's see. Zanwald, dang Scribelight, talking about her sister, we thought she was just an addict. Self-vilification. Well, I don't know about that one. That doesn't really sound like self-vilification. I mean, if they did not know that she was, I don't know. It's not a bingo square, but chat, do you think her confessing that her family were ignorant and at least implicitly dismissive of her based on addiction versus something else, even though I don't know what crimes she committed that that's supposed to forgive her for, does that comment constitute self-vilification or wretchedness? If you think it does, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't think it does, put a 2. I'm iffy, but I'm not so much on the. I'm more towards a no. But since it's not a bingo square, I'm not overly concerned if people think so. No, 2, no. Okay. Zeke Feist, if she explained the crimes, maybe, but no. Okay. Lissa Leo says maybe not benevolent condescension. Yeah. Let's see. Slapper360, when she saw the unpaid medical bills and saying she knew the situation the guy was in for benevolent condescension. I know you guys want to get that bingo. I know you do. It's 1 square. That's not condescension. That's just empathy. I mean, she knew the guy was threatening his own life. He'd explained his hopelessness and everything else. She saw signs that might explain where he was at. I don't find that condescending. And credit to our speaker, the situation that she was in. And again, I'm extending that her description of the events were true. If she had any role at all in helping that guy be talked down from hurting himself, I can't slight her for that. I can't slight her for assessing the situation and feeling sorry for that guy given the circumstances. So that doesn't feel like condescension to me. That just feels like basic observation, basic empathy with someone's situation. No one nor, especially when she's saying the cops couldn't see it, Scribe Light. I know that I brought up the observation that like her and the Cahoots team were doing anything or were noticing anything the cops couldn't have. She didn't make that comparison. I was just sort of bringing her example into the taking it a step back and saying how is this any different from what a police officer could have done. So she didn't make that comparison directly. That was me. But again, even if she had been, that would have fallen under like presumptive vilification of police or something, not benevolent condescension. Her attitude towards police overall was not positive. It wasn't benevolent. It was accusatory. So I don't think you're going to convince me that anything she had or thought about police or implicitly accused them of counts as benevolent condescension. She was condescending. Don't get me wrong. I'm not absolving her for condescension towards law enforcement and the criminal justice system at all. But does it count as benevolent condescension? No. Is it soft bigotry of low expectations? No. Not in that sense. Some emulation, Scarlett. What about when she brought up her sister's story as an example of feminism for the bingo? Yeah, no, sorry. All right, guys. I'll leave it another couple of minutes if you have any other arguments, but I think we might be at a push for this bingo card. I don't think we're going to get to one. Feminism. She never brought up gender. Benevolent condescension. I mean, the only very abstract argument you could make, I guess, is by her saying that the jails were just there for mental health, that crime is a mental health problem. She's kind of dismissing the seriousness of criminal acts, like they don't count or there aren't victims or something. I don't know. Maybe there's an argument there, but if I have one, I'm not framing it correctly to even convince myself. John Miller, that is the Denver attitude, naturally condescending attitude or tone. What's good for Denver is good for everyone, even when it isn't. Green Death, I just think her argument is dumb. She only has anecdotal evidence of this working, no real data. Yeah, and especially when like one of her examples was like a 2% reduction in tickets and citations or something. Like, what? The co-worker of the mental health person with the police officer accounts to a reduction in tickets and citations. Oh, and now I get a text from work because I need to check in with work. All right, guys, I'm going to call it here for reasons not just because I think we've hit a stalemate. Again, the suggestion of having dedicated partners, mental health professionals that ride along with police officers in assigned cars or something as an option depending on the circumstances of a call or a call that comes in that might involve a mental health crisis. If an officer is there to supplement or take over if things go sideways, that doesn't sound unreasonable to me. That arrangement doesn't sound unreasonable to me. Having a crisis team, again, I'd have to know what delineates a crisis situation from a police situation. If you're telling us they've had 1,000 calls and never had to call for police backup, give us an example. What were the circumstances? She was very specific in the one instance, but then she didn't give us any information on anything else that could, give us an idea of what she's talking about or how the problem is solved. And the 2%, I think she said reduction in tickets and citations, 2%, really? And tickets and citations. For what? Like homeless people acting out, or people with mental health issues who are doing things on the street? Like, what? Anyway, a lack of information, a lack of examples, a lack of specificity didn't really sell me on her pitch. The idea of dedicated partners of police and mental health dispersed around the city, that doesn't sound terrible to me. I could be convinced on that. I need more information, though. I need more data of the results of that and how things have been mitigated. Or take two situations that are at least comparable to one another, one where there wasn't a mental health professional and one where there was only police, and tell me how there was a better outcome or a pattern of better outcomes. But she didn't do that. So there were bits there that, again, if they were expanded upon and I had more information, I might be convinced. But it's still on very shaky ground for me. Abolish police, defund police, replace police. Still not completely convinced. But that being said, everyone, thank you so much for joining me today for this one. I realize it was a relatively short one, but there was a lot to digest. Thank you so much for your attendance. Thank you so very much for your argumentation and participation. Those who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really, really do appreciate it. If you'd like to hear more from me or the Ranting Monkey or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find all three of us tonight on the Ranting Monkeys channel for our 4th anniversary extravaganza. What does that mean? I have no idea. You'll find out along with me tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, again, thank you so much for joining me for this one. I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.